All right. So one of the questions I get asked a lot when I'm teaching, uh, especially with blues or jazz kind of changes, is the whole chord thing. Seems to be a bit of a mystery for a lot of people. And it was for me too. When I first started playing, I was like, God, where in the world are all these chords coming from? Um, Fortunately, when I went to school, they had a relatively systematic way of approaching getting some voicings. So the first thing I want to talk about is a real simple little trick. One of the first things I learned is if you listen to, say, a bass player. I was playing a blues in G there earlier, and if you listen to a bass player playing a bass line, well, that's a great way for the bass player to get from the 1 chord, G7, to the 4 chord of C7. So, is if I harmonize that bass line, and this is some of the guitar players refer to this as Freddie Green style. Freddie Green was a guitar player, played with Count Basie. Uh, Basically, I'm going to incorporate that bass line into my voicings. And here's the first trick I learned: is you play G7, and I only need these 3 notes: the G, the F, and the B. And oftentimes I'll either use these 3 fingers, or sometimes I'll even use those 3 fingers. In fact, if you watch me play a lot, you'll see that I do this a lot. So check it out. Here's the first one, G7. Now the next move is to go like this. So the bass player goes up to the A. So now this chord, if you want to call it something, is actually F over A. So my first finger stays here. Okay, then it's real simple. I slide it up a half step, and then I slide it up another half step, and then I get to the C7. So again, that's one of the first tricks I learned, is to harmonize that little walking bass line. G7, F over A, and then F sharp over A sharp, or whichever way you want to look at it, and then G over B. And then I get to the C7 chord, and again I only need these 3 notes. I've got the C, the B flat, and the E. Now watch this. Here's my little trick for getting back down. A bass player might quite often go like this. So here's the bass line. And now I go to the B flat and then A flat. So you hear that a lot. So here's how I get from G7 to the C. And now I'm going to take this chord and I'm going to go to the B flat, and I'm going to play B flat 7, and then I'm going to go to the A. I'm going to play A minor 7. So that voicing, I'm using my second finger. Everything's on the 5th fret. Again, I'm just using these 3 notes, A, G, and C. Now here's the tricky little part, is I'm going to leave my pinky where it is, and I'm going to take these 2 fingers and slide them down, and now I have A flat 7. That A flat 7 is, in fancy jazz terminology, is called a tritone sub. Okay, so here's the whole thing in slow motion. B flat 7, A minor 7, A flat 7. So that's basically the first 2 bars of a blues, is going from the 1 to the 4. Okay, so I mentioned tritone subs. This is one of the first things when I was in school that they had us do, was to just make an exercise out of this. So here's how you do it. I started on A7 right here. So my second finger's on the 12th fret, first finger's on the 11th, on the 4th string, and my third finger is on the G string on the 12th fret. So I have A, C sharp, and G. I only need those 3 notes. So here's the little trick. I'll demonstrate it real quick first. Basically, I'm tritoning everything. So I go from A7 to E flat 7, which slides to the D7. So again, I'm just using these basic little voicings. So A7, then I go to E flat 7, 11th fret, and then my third finger stays on the 12th. And then I slide down a half step. Then I go to A flat 7, slide down a half step, slide down. So basically the changes would be, in normal world, would be. But in jazz world, when we add the tritones, we put a half step above everything. Okay, and again, tritone sub sounds like a scary word if you haven't studied theory and you hear these fancy terms, tritone sub. The easiest explanation of a tritone sub is you just put a dominant chord in front of wherever you're going, so a half step above of wherever you're going. So if I'm going to G7, well, I just put an A flat 7 in front of it. You've heard it a million times when you play blues. So I put a tritone sub in front of the C. Well, people do it because it sounds so natural, but the fancy term for it is tritone sub. So it's an easy way to get some extra changes in your playing.